Okay, today we have one of my favorite amps. It is a Mark I Rev The Generator 120, which is the 4-channel version. Previous owner had the custom faceplate redone with their new logo, which I think just looks so fucking sick. Okay, so I'm gonna do a rundown of how the amp works for anyone who doesn't know this amp. But if you know the amp, feel free to skip ahead to the audio samples. So I've got the foot switch in front of me here. It's got a blue channel, which is the clean, green channel, which is the kind of mid-gain, 3, which is the really tight, aggressive, heavy gain, and then we have 4, which is apparently the same as 3, but it has one more tube gain stage. It's a little more mid-range heavy. And then on on 3 and 4, it has aggression modes, which are kind of like boosts, but maybe not exactly. And so for channel 3 and channel 4, there is 2 aggression modes. There's the purple aggression, and then the red aggression, and then it goes back to no aggression, and the same thing on the other one. And I'm foot switching these, by the way. The whole amp can be programmable in so many different ways. I haven't got into it because I just really use it in the studio. The 3 and 4 channels have switchable bright switches, and they also have a mid contour knob, which is kind of like a mid boost, kind of adds this like aggressive sort of frequency. And then they also have a fat switch. One thing I really love about this amp is how versatile it is for almost any guitar you plug in. Like some guitars I have, you plug them into some amp and it's just like, no, that pickup, that tuning, whatever, just doesn't really work with this amp unless you just kind of go crazy tweaking it. This amp I almost always find like it's really easy to, you know, just flip a couple of the different switches and you're like, oh, that's the tone I wanted, you know. So it's really great for that. So the Mark I, it also has a passive input and an active input, but I pretty much just use the passive input even with the active humbuckers. But the active can be an interesting thing to kind of get some interesting studio tones, especially on the 2nd channel, which is a kind of a weird channel. They've done a lot of upgrades on this amp over the years. Like I was saying, this is the Mark I version. One of the main things they did is the 2nd channel, they revamped it, because on this amp it's pretty unusable. It's kind of almost like a fuzz, almost like just like a filtered tone. So if you're using this as a metal amp, it's kind of cool for that, because you can kind of do these like mid... It's almost like if you had like a clean tone with kind of like a tube screamer with no gain on it going, and you'll hear it. It's pretty cool, but not really like that usable as a tone. It's just more of an effect almost. The cleans are super clean. The effects loop works great. I'm going to kick on an HX Stomp in the loop later on in the video just to show, you know, some chorus and reverb and delay and just see how it all works together, because they sound great. So what I'm running tube-wise in this amp, you can't really see it maybe in the video, but it is 2 EL34s and I think they're JJs. 2 JJ EL34s and 2 old, I think, Magnavox or maybe Western Electric, or I think they're GE 6550s. I do really love this amp with just all 6L6s. That's probably where I'd go, but I didn't have any spares when I got this and it needed some different tubes. And this does a really nice balance of having the kind of aggressiveness of the EL34, but the round and fatness of the bigger tube, but doesn't really... it doesn't like get flabby like it would be if you had like all 6550s in there. So the other thing I'll note is that the preamp tubes are all, or maybe they're not all, but at least like the first 1 or 2 are, I think they're Electro-Harmonics, so the low noise ones they came out with. Like I think they're 7025s, and then the rest of them have the little, you can see them. They're like these little red O-rings. Like they help reduce the rattle of the tube, because it's getting a little bit of that weird feedback and stuff when I got this amp. But that really cleared it out, and it sounds super good now. Alright, let's check it out. Starting on the 3rd channel. Here we go.